Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, and today we'll be doing something I explicitly said I wouldn't. You see, for the last few videos I did a lot of research looking to try to find little interesting tidbits, and found some things I want to talk about when it comes to elves. I don't really want to make videos about individual ancestries because many have done it before and probably better than I will do, but I can't really just make a 10-minute video about little lesser known elf facts without doing some kind of setup. But here's what we'll do. Quick one of the history, ethnicities, and the likes of the elves to start, the basic information. Then I'll go into depth on the minute, irrelevant information I actually want to talk about. History speedrun, go. Elves first appeared during the Age of Serpents. There was debate on whether they originated from Galorian or the nearby planet of Castrovel, elves appearing on both planets at the same time, approximately. They had skirmishes with the fledgling humans, because normal human stuff. However, elf diviners predicted the upcoming events of Earthfall. To survive, most elves abandoned the planet, spending centuries in the elfin enclave of Castrovel. However, when the elves sensed the arrival of the Nascal Demon Lord Tree Raiser, corrupting their lands and approaching a pull that allowed travel between the two planets, the elves decided they had no choice but to take their Galarian holdings. They have only been back on the planet for about 2 millennia, which is only a few generations for the long-living elves, and they still are not entirely connected to Galarian, but their connection to nature and the defense of the homeland means they do intend to do what they can to protect their home, maybe to the end of this time. With history out of the way, let's next go with today's first side tangent. Welcome to the portion of the show where the villains of the story are given their dues. As you can probably guess, it is time for information on Tree Raiser. This Nascal Demon Lord of corruption, of nature, and pollution is a child of full Demon Lord Sist the Sug. He achieved his current rank by serving his father loyally for a time. After an unknown incident, Tree Raiser was exiled from the abyss, and even death would not allow his essence to return. After wandering Galarian for many thousands of years, he eventually came across Kyonin and began using his power to corrupt nature. This eventually brought about the Elves' return. He currently takes the reign over Tengabriar Woods in Kyonin, chased there by his arch-rival, the elfin god Kettifus. However, the recent closure of the World Wound has brought about fears that he will reconcile with his father to cause the next large demonic threat to the world. Overall facts about elves, appearance-wise, they tend to be slightly taller and thinner than humans, with pointed ears. However, the physical feature most prominent in elves are their eyes, having pupils large enough to leave little white. Elves have 4 names: their birth name, a name only known by intimate members of their life like parents or lovers, aka the elf middle name, nicknames which are used by just casual associates in their lives, and their family/last name. Elves are one of the longest living ancestries. Their lifespan, according to 1E rules as written, tends to be somewhere between 350 to 750 years. Other sources hint at thousands. On a physical note, elves do not need to sleep. Instead, they go into a deep trance for 4 hours when it comes to rest, giving them natural protections against sleep effects. Going through more particular parts of Elvish culture, they tend to appreciate freedom and aesthetics. For elves, freedom is as important as food and water. They consider it against everything elves stand for to try to restrict any part of another's nature. This means other ancestries see them as flighty, but the elves believe no one can fully know the nature of another. They try to impose themselves on another even a little is a sin. This does not necessarily mean that elves always agree with each other. Elves butting heads can lead to major rivalries referred to as Ilduliel. Common warning, I'm not going to be able to pronounce any elf names. So, anyway. In terms of aesthetics, elves are not only known for their natural beauty, but also natural attraction to other forms of beauty. This leads many elves to become some form of artists, but their search for beauty goes towards all things. Just see how an elf swings a sword or shoots a bow, and you can see beauty can easily be deadly. Either way, you can always expect elves to be dressed in the latest of fashions. Going through the heritages of elves, there are two large divisions of elves. Those who stay during Earthfall, and those who left to avoid the disaster. It's been shown that if elves spend time in an environment for a few hundred years, they tend to adapt the characteristics of that ethnicity, but it will probably take multiple generations for a full adaptation to the environment. Those who stay in the Elf 4, plus one, we'll get there. The first of the four are the Marley J, the jungle elves of the Margin Expanse. This ethnicity is made up of 3 tribes, each its own nation in the Expanse: the Alley J, the Echo J, and the Kali J. They are known for fighting against threats to their nation, from Echo J's history with defeating an aspect of the Rock, to the Kali J's continuous battle with the Gula Kings. Further north are the Voinoi, or Desert Elves. They live in Orison, where they were largely left alone. They found over the years the advantage of getting along with others, so they tend to be hospitable, unless you try to conquer their races. Ivoani of the Crown of the World are snow elves, known for keeping to themselves. However, during Earthfall, they built habitats for those in need, and kept the tradition to this day. Finally, aquatic elves adapted to water like the steaming sea, have an even higher opinion of themselves than most elves, bragging about their ability to fully travel around their environment. For those who returned, we have 2 main ones: the Eudine and the Spider Swan. Eudine, sometimes referred to as High Elves, are the elves that we know them, the elves of Kyonin, those who are always aloof and elfish. The fact that they left and came back is their main differentiation from other elves. See all other sections outside of Ethnicity to learn all you want about the Iodine culture. The Spider Swan, on the other hand, are more elfish than even that. They are descendants / the actual still living elves who saw the coming over Earthfall and voted to retreat. Returning, they will have to find the modern tower where the goddess Archery fell. They decided all Azlantian relics belonged to them, became even more isolationist than the common elf, and began wearing masks in front of outsiders. They also claim the tower talks to them, as well as, I should note, they worship Gazra on top of the usual elfish gods. This is how I ended up here. Saw small mentions they did worship these gods in last video, and when I did not find enough information to add them in, I did find elfish information I want to talk about. Anyway, of course, I still have time for side tangents. As mentioned, the modern spider was created from the corpse of a carver, who will be our second side tangent for the day. A carver was the Azlanti Goddess of companionship, defensive combat, and the moon. She also was one of the two gods worshipped by Eredin when he was still mortal, the other being her husband Amaznen. She was a brave warrior and one of the shining stars of the Empire, being responsible for various deeds of valor. When the city of Baelith was attacked in total darkness, she sent an image of the crescent moon to save them. When the cities under her protection was attacked by the forces of the former god Norgal, she was the one who divided him from head to foot, resulting in the two demigods we have today. And when Earthfall was approaching, she sacrificed her life to move the moon to slow down the meteorite. It said that modern Spire was found when her soul attempted to reach the boneyard. Even today, she still offers protection to people everywhere. Her former herald repurposing part of her former divine realm into Bas Raquel, one of the safe havens within the Maelstrom. Going back to ethnicities, there was one special one, Dark Elves, Drow. The original Drow were a faction of those who stayed behind. They decided to protect themselves underground, eventually finding themselves in a place known as Nar Voth, sometimes referred to as the Caves of the Craven. Here, they were safe from Earthfall, but that's all. The coming of Earthfall caused the bindings on the rogue beast Dravagard to unwind, allowing him to release his dark energies. This, combined with the elves' feelings of anger and betrayal that have been building since the days their brothers left them behind, turned their skin to trademark purple and the hearts dark. From here, it was an easy turn to start demon worship and flesh warping. What has also become recently known to the wider world is what is known as the Dark Fate. The fact that elves' natural ability to adapt can allow one exposed to great evil to become a drow. This is usually done with the elf themselves crossing the line, but we have at least one instance of an elf slaughtered by demons becoming a drow when her allies brought her back to life, the why unknown. Finally, though not an ethnicity per se, there are forlorn elves. Elves tend to live longer than other species, so those that live among them instead of other elves tend to gain lots and lots of experience in their friends dying during their childhood. As in seeing childhood friends they played with river and die of old age. So forlorn tend to be considered their own breed of elves, and ones other elves pity. Now if the elves themselves are the way, let's talk about where you can find them. In the Ethnicity region, one can find many small elf enclaves of those elves who stayed. As stated earlier, the three tribes of the Melidre are considered nations, even if modern nations do not have set borders that northern nations are known for. However, when one thinks elves, they think of Kyonin, what was once the center of elfin culture, but now is greatly reduced by recent human holdings. The second major place you would find elves are as stated, off-world on Castrovel. There they have their own nation of Sovereign, one of the 4 main continents, with their capital at El. El is where the Sovereign Stone, the portal between the 2 worlds, connects to Eudora, the capital of Kyonin. No specific information on either one of them. I can make their own video about Nation of Kyonin or the entire planet of Castrovel. So, no time. But for one with more specific information, there is also one other major elf enclave on Valorian, back in Tianzia. Here, when Earthfall is approaching, a group descending into the darkness of Narvath, those destined to become the Drow. However, an elven oracle by the name of Jinian Seal had a vision of a silver tree, a vision she knew was salvation for her people. A group followed Jinseal deeper to the earth, through the underground caverns known as Sekamina for hundreds of years, until they came to a large vein of mithril. Rising, they found a beautiful forest in the heart of Tianzi, the land that would become named as Jinin. Jinseal would die weeks later, content that our people are saved. Jinin is one of the oldest surviving countries in the Dragon Kingdoms, but as now as after they have been unaffected by their neighbors. Exchange of Minkai has heavily influenced the elves of the region, and they've adapted Bushido. These elves are more welcoming to their neighbors, allowing many travelers into their capital of Ayajinbo, but they make sure to keep their defense of their mithril secure. One last thing before I go to the more obscure bits of information. A single information associated with the elves. The Lantern Bearers. This organization was formed to keep track of those who fell to dark fate, and eliminate any trace of Drow they could. Then one of the Winter Council, those who gave the Lantern Bearers their orders, turned into a Drow, while trying to create a repeat of Earthfall. With this, they decided they could no longer be in the shadows. The Lantern Bearers are now a public organization, both open to membership outside of Elves, and helping solve problems of a large variety around the region. With influence from the Church of Sandway, they've also made it their mission to try to help redeem Drow, which, despite centuries of mistrust, has proven to be possible, creating a small growing minority of non-evil Drow. Now I am through with the basics and ready to move on to obscure elf facts after 18.5 minutes. Welcome to my channel. Either way, a specific elf topic I found interesting are Ayudara, or more specifically, the ways to open them. Ayudara, or elf gates, as they are known by anyone besides elves, are stone arches which elves used to travel vast distances. They are set up all across Western Galorian and Castrovel, which many nations worry about the instantaneous travel. Each gate is open to a specific key, many of them forgotten over the ages, even by the elves. The most common is that gates only work during certain times. Most need verbal passwords, some spells like knock, some keystone that needs to be pressed against them, or some respond to certain music. The most secure, of course, tends to be the protection by the combination of many of these. like your email password. Next we have archery. We all know elves love archery, to the point where a simple target range is considered child's play. Therefore, the culture has strong love of archery contests. We all have been given 4 examples in the past. First is blindfolded, sometimes being spun around, and firing blind. Next is distance shooting, trying to hit ridiculous distances which would make modern snipers impressed. Third, kill shots. One must kill some incredibly dangerous beast using less arrows than their opponent. And finally, follow shaft, the traditional matching your opponent's shot game. An interesting topic, cooking. With elves, magical arts can enhance anything, with this including cooking. Elves know how to make even the most basic foods into an unparalleled dining experience, and input into potions. In terms of 1E, they count as potions, not only being delicious but also infusing one with magical powers. Elves talented in the culinary arts are happily willing to sell to merchants or share samples with friends, so we have a long history to attest to the magnificent quality of their cooking. They also never spoil because they're magical items. So there was a chance while exploring old elven ruins of finding a set table full of new life soup or whey bread. An interesting change from potions hitting it in a chest. Finally, we look at various notes on elven music, in no particular order. Instruments known to be used by elves include drums, water bowls, pipe organs, sitars, panpipes, recorders, lairs, and horns. Most of the music is simple, being written with only notes and lacking chords. Notes, when they are written down, also tend to use astrological symbols as opposed to simple dots and lines, and are also never written in straight scales. They instead point how the music should be used, like curved up and down for dancing. Different melodies are usually reserved with different days or different seasons. Finally, elves tend to have music ready for any task, ranging from working the fields to fighting in a war. And finally, to end this off, I say as if we did not already know I was not even close to done yet. Me being me, we cannot do this without looking at the gods and religion. Back to just overview mode, we can make half of these into their own video, and the others we still need more information on in order to do so. Elves by their nature, they err on the side of pantheism. The earth deities understanding it along well without jealousy. The main elf pantheon is made up of 5+1 deities. First is Calistria, the deity that is the main representation of pantheon outside of elvish lands because of her representation of universal values. The values of lust and revenge. She is the best representation of the elven mood, and how they give something their all while still ending up dispassionate about it. Another 3 minor deities only really worshipped by the elves are Kedifis, Vendela de Lara, and Uelrol. Kedifis is the god of forestry and those who respect nature. He is also a god of the hunt who often gets along well with Aristotle. Vendela de Lara, in exchange, is rival of Sarenrae, herself being a goddess of art and architecture. She does, however, prefer to preserve or innovate of all arts over the creation of new, and looks down on those who have not mastered traditional elfish art crafts, or non-elves in general. Uelriel, goddess of magic and crystals, disagrees with this, encouraging open worship from half-elves. She prefers natural magic and use of crystals over that of metal or artificial substances. The fifth, we have contradictions for. Desna, or Alceta. One source will list one as the member of the main five, while the other as the and also, while another source will switch these places. We'll just put them both here at the same spot. Desna, the goddess who travel, dreams, and stars, often takes the form of an elf woman, and has similar disconnections from the civilized world as your common elf. Alceta is the goddess of doors, which includes the previously mentioned Ayudar. Two others held in high esteem by elves are Nethys, the god of magic because elves love magic, and the ephemeral lord Cernus, who sometimes appears as an elf and who the elves see as a symbol of luck. On the topic of religion, there are various elves who believe in what is known as the brightness. This is a search for signs from the gods, from nature, and from within themselves to reach some level of enlightenment. These elves believe that all elves are reincarnations of wild animals, and will reincarnate again. However, if they had not found their brightness in life, they are cursed to spend several lifetimes as a wild animal until returning to elfdom. This is actually one of the main reasons elves adventure. They find a small sign which they follow in order to experience the true brightness. As one gets closer to brightness, one gains various abilities related to it, including the ability to unlock the claws, fangs, and other abilities of past lives, a closer bond to nature, and the ability to ignore death and continue walking to find your brightness, even if in a different shape. Now let's end this with two different side tangents, all about books related to elves. First, and our third side tangent overall, is Meditations and Revelation. This book was written by Amberek Two Souls, a minor talented noble who found religion after making a living out of torturing the faith out of any believers he could find. As penance, he wrote many books over his life, Meditations and Revelations being his last and greatest. It is not related to any one faith, but to the very concept of being faithful, which has it banned in Nidal for bringing undue hope, and Razmiran to use a heavily edited version to promote Razmir. However, its meditation techniques are also useful secularly. The two examples given are Gelmire, where meditation helps with training, and Kyonin, the reason I am using to justify putting it in this episode. Elves have been shown to be able to use these meditation books to greatly improve themselves, but also their not sleep, allowing one to cancel out the negatives of not quite getting there 4 hours. Yes, and not directly related to elves, but I love the anthology books and need to talk about this one someday. Good place to just stick it in. The second book, and our final side tangent, is The Era Song Sorrow. This book is merely only a century old, yet has had profound effects on certain elf mages. First appearing to be a run-of-the-mill magical thesis, the margins are full of large amounts of notes and poetry, signed by the mysterious Era Song, about how much the book and her parents suck. She just wants to practice archery, man. Gosh. Just average teenage angst, right? Well, when was the last time your teenage angst ended up being used as a thesis on how to counter magic. When have your balls been so perfect that you suddenly become better at a concept you're complaining about? Well, that's what the mysterious Elves managed to do. Her distaste for the magics her parents were trying to teach her ended up as a comprehensive thesis on how to counter magic, and her poems, referred to collectively as the Elves' Lament, describes everything wrong with her parents' teaching methods in such detail it actually makes it easier to memorize spells while reciting these complaints. Though the identity of the elves known as the Elves Song is unknown, elves in a variety of balds within the River Kingdoms have adapted and began spreading these teachings far and wide. And that's it for this week. A video as long as the Plains videos was just because I found interesting information about cooking and music. Don't expect any more Ancestry videos coming anytime soon. I will just end up doing them another day I run into information about dwarves or halflings while researching for another video. Gnomes I would probably just do because I love gnomes and they are interesting. But not yet. Next week we will be going with our first actual nation. Make sure to bring a calendar.